Okay, starting off our stock market unit is actually going to be talking about how running a business works. A lot of you guys have said, and that's awesome, it's a really common thing nowadays, to want to be your own boss, right? To own your own business. Because we don't want to be controlled by anybody else. We don't have to answer to anybody else. It'd be awesome to make your own schedule. There's lots of benefits to owning your own business. It is very hard to start a business by yourself because there's a lot of capital, a lot of money you have to have up front, and sometimes you don't have enough by yourself. So you ask somebody to come in and help you out, and you kind of divvy up the ownership of the organization. Now, what we're going to talk about in this lesson is how that should work. If any of you guys are considering owning your own business, that's definitely something you want to learn about in college. And this is something they'll talk about is when people go in on a business together, this is how it should work to be fair. This isn't like the law necessarily or anything like that. But mathematically, this is how it should work. If you guys agree on something else, then okay. But for it to really work out and in a business sense and like acceptable in the business world, this is how it works. So let's talk about this. It says Michelle invests $15,000 in a partnership that has 4 other partners. The total investment of all partners is $240,000. What percent of the business does Michelle own? So Michelle is only putting in $15,000 into the investment for this company to kind of get it going. She has this percentage of say in the company. So she has some pull because she owns a portion of the company, but because she only contributed $15,000, her percent is not going to be that big. So she's not going to have probably the total say, or the overall say in the company. And we'll see that when we see what her percent is. So since it says what percent, whenever a question, it does not matter at all the context. If a question says what percent, we are going to divide. That's because, if you guys recall, whenever you have a test score, for example, like if your test score is 9 out of 17, and you're like, I don't know what that is. Well, what percent is that? You would divide it, see the decimal, and then get it as a percent. So that's the same thing here. You're going to have the portion on top. So like if this were a test, that would be the portion you got right out of the total, right? The total number of questions. So in this case, Michelle's portion is $15,000. That's what she contributed. The total investment, though, is $240,000. So take a moment, divide that. You're going to get a decimal, and then we're going to change that decimal to be a percent. 15,000 divided by 240, 1, 2, 3. Okay, so you should have gotten 0.0625. So this is not the percent. It's not 0.0625%. This is the percent as a decimal. You guys remember, some of you might just be able to move the decimal, but how do we go from a decimal back to a percent? We're going in reverse of what we normally do. We should multiply this by 100 because I'm going in reverse, right? If we want to go from a percent to a decimal, we divide by 100. Here, we're trying to go the other direction, so we multiply. So this is 6.25%. So what this means is when they are making decisions about the business, Michelle doesn't have a lot of say. Those 4 other partners have the rest, 93.75%. They own the rest of the company. So if it's just her against them, she doesn't really have any say. What can happen, though, is if you've got partners, people can kind of team up, and based on their percentages of contributions, they might be able to have the biggest say. Even if one person has the highest percentage, if 3 people agree and together their percentage is bigger, then they can go, oh yeah, okay, we decide we're making this decision because together we own a biggest portion of the company. So this again is how it should work when you run a business with somebody, for it to be fair, for there not to be any arguments, and for it to just be, yep, this is how it goes. If people open up businesses and don't run them this way, they tend to fail because this is how you should be splitting a business and business decisions. So try this one more time. Again, read the question very carefully here. I want to see if you guys can catch the difference. There is a little difference here, but it's going to be division. See if you can tell what the difference is, though, and see if you know what to do. Okay, so here's the difference. What percent is owned by the 5 other partners? So this is what I was saying. In this question, I kind of said, okay, 93.75% is owned by the other partners. Same thing here. We're going to figure out what the other partners own. Kyle invests 20%. They invest the rest. Now, it doesn't matter that we don't know individually what they own or what they contributed, but we know what the rest is. So you could have done this 2 ways. You could have done Kyle's percentage, which ends up being, let's see, 20, 1, 2, 3, divided by 160, 1, 2, 3. So Kyle's percentage ended up being 12.5%. If you subtract that from 100, that will give you the rest that is owned by the other people. So 100 minus 12.5, which is 87.5%. Or what you could have realized is if Kyle invested 20,000, the rest is 140, right? 160 minus 20,000. That means everybody else together contributed 140,000. Divide that by 160, the total you would get. I'll put it in the calculator, but I'm going to guess it's 87.5. Hey, look, 0.875, which is times by 100, 87.5%. So either way would have worked. Personally, I like this way better for some reason, where you think of, oh, what's the rest, and then just divide it, and there you go. But just read the question carefully. As always, sometimes we get in the habit of thinking, oh, it's the exact same, and we don't want to think. This one was a little bit different. So again, those 5 other people have a lot of pull. If they banded together, they have this much say in the company, they get to make the decisions, yeah? But if somebody decided to go with Kyle and side with Kyle, well, hey, maybe they can team up now and make the final decisions in these companies. Okay, in example 2, so this is going to be talking about now a ratio. So this is called an extended ratio. Do I have this here? No. But let's go ahead and read this and we'll talk about how to work with it. 3 partners are investing a total of $200,000 to open a landscaping business. So altogether, $200,000. Their investments are in the ratio, we read this 2 to 3 to 5. How much does the partner that invested the least contribute? So this 2 to 3 to 5, this represents each partner's contribution. What it represents is how many slices of the pie they have. We talked about this, right? That kind of stocks and owning a business is kind of like slicing up a pie or pizza. So the first person has 2 slices. The second person has 3 slices. The last person has 5 slices. How many total slices are there then to this pizza? Well, if we add them together, that means there are 10 total slices to this company, right? That's how many the first person owns, that's how many the second person owns, that's how many the third person owns. So when we want to figure out how much the partner invested the least contributed, that means we're focusing on the 2. If the question said, how much does the partner that invested the most contribute, we'd be focusing on the 5. So they contributed, if we were to write this as a fraction, if they have 2 slices out of the 10 slices, as a fraction, this would be 2 out of 10. That is the fraction that represents the person who contributed the least. And once again, we got the 10 by adding those numbers together. Now that I want to find out how much they invested 2/10 of 200,000. Of tells us to do what? Multiply. So we're going to multiply by 200,000. 2 divided by 10 times 200,000. And this is going to tell us how much they contributed. So they contributed $40,000. They have 2 slices of the pizza. The pizza happens to have 10 total slices. Again, this is just an analogy. I hope it's a landscaping business. It's not actual pizza, right? But if we're thinking about slicing up the ownership of this business, they own 2 out of the 10 slices of ownership, yeah? So what you're going to do again when you see that ratio is you're going to make the fraction for the person they're asking about, and then multiply by the total investment. That will tell you how much they invested. So you're going to try it again. This question does say how much does each investor contribute? So you're going to need to do two fractions. One for the 4, one for the 5. But we are finding again how much they contributed, so make sure that you multiply in the end to get your answer. Go ahead and try it. Okay, so the first person contributed 4 out of 4 plus 5. This business is split into 9 total slices. So the second person contributed 5 out of 9. So there's your two fractions. This person contributed 40 out of 45,000. Out of 45,000, you should have done that in both cases. Let's do this math real quick here. 4 divided by 9 times 45,000. So for the first person contributed 20,000. Now, obviously, we can go to the calculator and plug in what this person, to get our answer. But hey, if this person contributed 20,000 out of 45, if we plug this in the calculator, we're going to get 25,000. Because that together gives us the 45. So once more, what this means is the partner who contributed the 25,000 is going to have more say in the business. Now, obviously, he can't be the total boss and say, everything I say goes, there's no compromise, because what can happen is the other partner can leave and take his money with him. If he owns 4/9 of the business, if he decides to leave, he gets to take that much of the business with them. This is how it works legally. When you go into a business with somebody, if you have part ownership of it and you decide to leave, you get to take that money with you when you leave. So the person who's in control has incentive to compromise with this person, even though they contributed the most. Once more, like I said, if you are interested in starting your own business, definitely go take some business classes at a community college to understand the proper way to run a business so that it succeeds. If you don't know how to run a business, there's too many ins and outs that you might not be aware of, and it could very easily fail. So from here, you're going to go ahead and go to your assignment. It's just going to be these two types of questions, either divide to find the percent, or you're going to have the ratio question.